Good afternoon. I'm State Representative Justin Simmons of the 131st District, and I'm proud to be joined by my colleague, Representative Steve Bloom, out from the Carlisle area. We're here today to talk about Representative Bloom's legislation that will call for a limited constitutional convention here in Pennsylvania. Representative Bloom and I decided to host this press conference today to talk to the media and public about this idea. I think this is a concept that individuals everywhere are actually interested in hearing about. Everywhere I go in Pennsylvania, I hear from individuals who are rightfully frustrated with the inaction in state government. And I know Representative Bloom and myself can both tell you, as members of the state legislature since 2010, we both are frustrated by the inaction in state government and the lack of initiative on certain items that to many people are very commonsensical. The public has been defending some major reforms to Pennsylvania for years, yet these reforms continue to not make their way through the entire legislative process. Look no further than the state budget stalemate, or property tax reform, or a reduction in the size of the state legislature. We have one of the largest full-time legislatures in the United States here in Pennsylvania. The idea of making ourselves a part-time legislature, like many other states do. Changes to compensation for legislators, changes to the per diem system, having checks and balances on the governor, transparency in the procurement process to end the possibility of no-bid contracts. All these types of commonsensical ideas that poll so well with the public continue to not be addressed in Pennsylvania. And in my tenure in the State House, and I know Representative Bloom's tenure in the State House, we've asked ourselves why this is and what we can do about it. And I'm so happy that Representative Bloom of Cumberland County is here today to talk about why the need for a limited constitutional convention is a way that we can address getting some of these ideas passed. Keep in mind, we have not had a constitutional convention in Pennsylvania since 1967. So this is a big opportunity for Pennsylvanians to take a very direct role in historic change for their government. And I want to stress, too, that the idea of having a limited constitutional convention is very important. Representative Bloom and I recognize that there are risks of having a runaway constitutional convention. That's why we're talking about a convention limited in scope so we can protect things like our Second Amendment rights. I'm going to turn it over now to Representative Bloom to talk more about the specifics of his bill and why a limited constitutional convention is so important. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Representative Simmons, thank you for having me here in your district to talk about this important initiative of a limited Pennsylvania Constitutional Convention. As Justin explained, what this bill would do procedurally is create a limited constitutional convention, opening up only those articles of the Pennsylvania Constitution that impact the legislature, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. We would, by statutory language in the bill, prevent any opening of the discussion of the Declaration of Rights section of the Constitution, which many of us hold sacred. So we're only talking about government reform issues. And as we all know, we have seen year after year, decade after decade, attempts to reform the Pennsylvania legislature and other aspects of our government that have failed for inaction on the part of the legislature. This is the opportunity to finally have the citizens rise up and do the job that the legislature has so far refused to do, to take control of Pennsylvania, fix our broken government. The process would be, first, this bill would have to pass the House and Senate. Once that happens, it would put on the next upcoming election, whether it's a primary cycle or general election, whatever's coming up next, on the ballot for the voters of Pennsylvania to vote on a referendum as to whether they wanted to have this limited constitutional convention. If the people say, yes, we want this opportunity to fix our broken state government, then there would be an election of delegates to the convention, which can't be legislators. They have to be regular citizens, 3 from each senatorial district, to serve as the actual delegates to the convention. Those delegates would then meet from the next July 1st through November 1st to determine what changes they want to make to fix our broken Constitution. Those elements that are not addressing the way the legislature conducts its business, the pay for legislators, the term limits for legislators, the way districts are carved up, all those things that the public has been so frustrated about, whatever those delegates, which are regular citizens, choose to address, then is enacted by the convention if they vote in favor of it. And then those changes would come back to the public, to the citizens, to vote in one more additional referendum at the end of the convention, at the next election, whether or not they actually want these changes to take place. So it's a careful process, it's a deliberative process. The citizens themselves, though, are in control of the process, cutting out the legislators, the bureaucrats, all those people that have failed to reform state government in the past. This was the opportunity for the citizens to get this job done. It, again, as Representative Simmons indicated, last time this happened was in 1967, basically 50 years ago. It's long overdue. And if you like Pennsylvania state government the way it is right now, if you like the way it's functioning now, then this is not for you. You shouldn't support it. But if you're ready to fix state government, to improve this state so that we can actually move forward instead of being mired in these endless budget standoffs and corruption scandals and overpayment for goods and services and contracts, then this is the time for you to rise up, contact your state representatives, contact your senators. Many have already co-sponsored the bill in the House, and there's a corollary version in the Senate sponsored by Senator Eichelberger. It's also got a number of sponsors on it already. But this is your time to tell your legislators and senators and representatives to please co-sponsor the bill, House Bill 1967, Senate Bill 867. And I'll, at this point, turn it over to questions that anyone may have for Representative Simmons and myself.
How can you be sure that members of the General Assembly won't just make the problem worse through a constitutional convention?
Well, good question. The question is whether we won't actually make the problem worse through a constitutional convention, that the members of the General Assembly would influence it improperly. The key is that the delegates are citizens. They're not sitting representatives. They can't be, that actually would disqualify you from serving. So it has to be ordinary citizens. And ultimately, again, there's the two forms of citizen veto over this whole process. First, it's up to the citizens to decide to have it. And then secondly, at the end of the whole thing, the citizens vote up or down whether they like the changes that have been proposed. So it's got that citizen guarantee because it will be the people of Pennsylvania who choose to have it and then who choose to ratify or accept the ideas that are brought forth from the convention.
Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you for having me here.
My pleasure. Thank you,
Appreciate
Steve.
it.
Thank you guys for attending today.